13 double game week players, bench boost active. This should be pretty straightforward, but O'Reilly's injury doubts and 2 single game week players in my active squad could cost me some serious rank. Here's exactly what I'm doing with my team for FPL Gameweek 33. Welcome back to the FPL Mugs YouTube channel and welcome to today's team selection video for FPL Gameweek 33, where my bench boost, of course, is active. If you do enjoy this type of content, drop a like, make sure you subscribe, it really does support the channel. But we're getting into the biggest talking point for not only me as a manager this week, but for a lot of FPL managers out there, maybe even you watching this video. What do we do with O'Reilly? Are there any updates we need to be talking about? Who would we even sell him to? Let's cover it all. Now, for me, first off with O'Reilly, I genuinely think he's probably the second or third best Manchester City asset right now. For me, I would say Erling Haaland is number one because that captain ability and the fact in 36 he's probably the best triple captain if you still have the chip. But Semenyo and him, I would say, are pretty close. He just is that good. Now, if he is out and we get that confirmation, of course he has to be sold. But there is many situations where in this press conference coming up from Pep, when he is asked, he doesn't give us too much. He maybe could be slightly optimistic about his return, in which I would just keep him. If he doesn't fully tell us if he's in or out, I probably still will just keep him. Now, I think where the problem lies, if he starts in this Arsenal at home fixture, could he actually be benched and rested in the Burnley away fixture? It really does depend on the severity of his current injury. Now, just to go into the FPL planner here to show you O'Reilly's fixtures for the rest of the season, I think a lot of people with this decision aren't focused too much in the future, more so this game week, whether he plays, whether he doesn't, sorry. And I feel as though that shouldn't be too heavy on your thought process. Yes, a bench boost, we're going to want as many people playing and starting as possible, which is a bit of a problem for one other player in this team, which we'll get to in the midfield section. But looking past that, of course, blanks in 34, and a lot of us managers are prepared for that. I'm free hitting in that game week. But Everton in 35, then a probable, highly likely double, in fact, actually, of Palace and Brentford both at home in game week 36. Another double game week where a lot of teams will not have a double game week for the rest of the season. This makes, for me, triple Manchester City, I hate to say it, but pretty much essential. I hate the word essential, but I just think it's really optimal to have a triple upon Manchester City. Whether that's the one defender, one midfielder, one forward, it kind of depends on your team structure and current budget. But I feel as though O'Reilly's that powerful of an asset, even if Pep is just that little bit optimistic about his return for the Arsenal game, for the Burnley game, he will be kept because I think he's that good of an asset to have for the majority of the season. I don't want to waste a transfer going to Guehi and then transfer Guehi out later for O'Reilly. It just feels like a wasted move. So let's hope that new news is somewhat positive on O'Reilly on Friday. We have the rest of the defence, of course, to speak about. Not as many problems, which is really nice to see. The Brighton double up we'll go with first. Of course, the players on my bench above my head, all of their points are included in this squad's final total for 33, which is an amazing strategy I've been on for a very long time now. But Verbruggen, Van Heck, the fixtures I want to focus on mainly here. Spurs away. Now, I'm a Sunderland fan. We played Spurs at the weekend, embarrassed them 1-0 from a deflected Mukele goal. I honestly think maybe that is the nail in their coffin to their season. I think they could be going down to the Championship. They were that bad on the day, when, in all honesty, we weren't that good on the day either. So Brighton do have a chance to really have a great fixture against Spurs away from her. I just don't think Spurs are going to turn up too well against Brighton. The Chelsea at home fixture is a bit of an iffy one, and I think it mainly does depend on how Chelsea perform against Manchester United in their first fixture. Because if it's the case that Chelsea go into that game, score a few goals and get a bit of momentum behind them, coming into the last bit of the season, that's going to be so incredibly important for them getting Europe. I think it's a bit of a hard one to call, that game against Brighton, but super happy with that double up in the defence. I don't think I would rather have another Brighton double up, in all honesty. The Bournemouth double up of Petrovic and Senesi, I do think James Hill, looking back, would maybe be a little bit better than Senesi to save some money, but the fact is, I just don't need to save the money with this draft. I think Senesi is ever so slightly the better pick, just because we have more data to look at and more to back him on, but James Hill is really quality. So if you have him, hats off to you. I think he's a great pick. Petrovic, on the other hand, with the fixtures we've got here, Newcastle away, Leeds at home, I'm hoping for save points across both of the fixtures, maybe a clean sheet against Leeds, but Newcastle is a hard game. I feel as though Newcastle have to show up in this fixture. If they don't, it's just going to turn so toxic. It already is so toxic. I have a lot of friends who are Newcastle fans, and they just want the season to be over. They absolutely have despised this Premier League season, the European campaign. Their cup runs have been disappointing as well, wanting to go a bit further than they did. This is a big game for Newcastle, and they never really do quite well against Bournemouth. The Eddie Howe curse, they call it. But I'm somewhat hopeful they come away with at least one clean sheet in this. The Leeds double up, I actually think, in defence, this is the best Leeds double up to go for. Struijk and Goodmanson, I think, are a great combo. Struijk should be the least minutes risk player in that back line, in my opinion, especially when Rodon comes back. I feel as though his place is not solid, but solid enough compared to the rest. Goodmanson just back from injury. I said when picking him on wildcard, people are like, why are you picking a flag player? Because I see the upside there. I really do, with that low ownership. But also his attack and output. Against Manchester United, if you watch that game, Goodmanson was a threat. He was absolutely fantastic. Should have had an assist, or maybe even two, actually. One from Calvert-Lewin in the first half, and then the second half puts in a great ball as well. I think he's going to be brilliant. Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, two great fixtures. Really looking forward to seeing Leeds play this week and midweek. But that is the defence for game week 33, with the bench boost, of course, active. Big problem though, O'Reilly. What do we do with them? Into the midfield now, and of course this video is going to be slightly longer than normal because the amount of players we're having to talk about. 15 players, of course, scoring points this week, which includes Bruno Fernandes as a single game week player on the bench, and we're going to get to him in just a second. I think firstly I want to focus on the problem of Kaoru Mitoma. Now on the wildcard 32, I went Mitoma as a differential player. I saw the upside with the fixture that they had, but it just didn't come away as I thought it would. He didn't even start the game. Now, this is a worry, but I want to focus ever so slightly on his competition, you could say, in Yakuba Minte. He has not been playing well. Minte has just not been playing well at all. When you watch Brighton, I just don't feel he gives that much to the team. I really think compared to the start of the season where he didn't look too bad, he's just dropped off massively. And Mitoma coming back in offers you something different. I see Mitoma starting the Spurs away game, which is the better fixture out of the two. When it comes to the Chelsea game, though, do I expect him to start midweek again? It's really hard to tell. And that's where the sticking point comes with Kaoru Mitoma this week, and a possible transfer out for him. Now, again, we go to the planning tool here, and I just want to show you what we could do in theory as a transfer. It would be to another Brighton midfielder. Now, we're still going to be going triple Brighton because I feel as though it is strong. It's just, who do we go for? 6.3 in the bank. We can pretty much get any of the, supposed nailed starters. Hinchelwood, Gomez, and Pascal Gross, I truly think it's between. I don't think I would include really anyone else because I don't think they're options. Hinchelwood is a standout sort of differential upside play, playing that number 10. He sort of tucks in off that right hand side half space, which I quite like, which I quite enjoyed actually against Burnley. Gomez should be starting in my opinion. Pascal Gross though, for me, he's the one who's the safest, who can almost guarantee you DEFCON in a way, a pretty good DEFCON stat per 90. For me, going Mitoma to Pascal Gross doesn't feel that sideways, but there is a hint of sideways to it. I just can't guarantee Mitoma starts both of the games. and that's a problem on bench boost, which is a little bit different to the O'Reilly situation, because O'Reilly's so good for the rest of the season. I'm willing to maybe sacrifice one of the fixtures this week, but with Mitoma, if it's the same situation where I expect him maybe to play one of these fixtures, I actually don't think I would have him this game week. I think he would be a transfer out using one of my 3 free transfers this game week. Moving along the line, though, with Cole Palmer this week, a lot of people kind of throwing up the idea of captaining Palmer this week, captaining even Semenyo this week as a differential play. I don't think it's quite worth it, but Palmer for me, now we know that, of course, Martinez is suspended for the game, Harry Maguire suspended for the game, a weaker Manchester United defence is expected. I can see Chelsea maybe gaining some momentum within this fixture, and hopefully Cole Palmer can be a big part of that. He's had a disappointing season, injuries not quite fully there in my opinion as the player he once was at Chelsea. Is it the system? Is it just Chelsea this season? We really don't quite know, but I feel as though in a double game week you back the penalty taker, but not as captain this week. Tavernier, similar vein of conversation to Senesi here, mainly about the fixtures. I think they're good enough fixtures there for Tavernier, super involved in play, but that penalty share now with Krupi Jr. makes him slightly less attractive in my opinion, but still probably the best Bournemouth midfielder, I would still say, because of that set-piece threat and, supposed penalties. Alex Scott, of course, massively outscoring him last game week. I still think Tavernier is the one to buy, in all honesty here, guys. Semenyo, to round things off for the double game week players, I would say he's second or third best Manchester City asset you can own. I think against Arsenal, he's going to be a real threat. And of course, against Burnley, maybe he's benched, maybe he isn't. We really don't know at this point how hard, of course, that game is going to be for the Arsenal one at home. Is it going to be a really intense fixture where maybe things are going to have to be moved around for the Burnley game? The reality of their situation, though, for Manchester City right now in the league is they need as many points as humanly possible. They need to win every single game. They need to be scoring as many goals as possible. Semenyo is the guy who can get that done for you on the wing, so I expect him to play for the majority of the season, the rest of the season, maybe a few early substitutions as the likely outcome for some of these big starting names for Manchester City. Bruno Fernandes, of course, sat on the bench as a single game week player. It's not a priority to sell him whatsoever. I mean, we'll quickly look at the fixtures for the rest of the season here, guys. Chelsea away this week isn't a bad fixture. I think the defence for Manchester United is weaker this week, but of course, going forward, they still have been quite impressive for the majority of the season. Brentford at home, not a bad game. Liverpool at home, I still think, not a bad game for a Bruno Fernandes. Sunderland away, great. Nottingham Forest at home, pretty good. Brighton away, I just think the fixtures are there enough to have a single game week player this week, especially how good Bruno Fernandes has been all season. I rant and rave about him every single week. He is probably the best FPL asset you can own, but not so much in the context of doubles and blanks now coming into the end of the season. He's definitely up there with one of the best you can own, and that's why, as a single game week player, he's going to remain in my squad. Let's move up now, though, to the forward line, where yet another problem happens for bench boost in game week 33. Even on my bench this week, Jarrod Bowen, of course, will score points for me, but the question is, do we actually sell him? We spoke earlier in the week on my transfer plans video where we had a big discussion whether I would actually move to João Pedro or not, and the outcome of that conversation was, I don't really want João Pedro, and in fact, I still don't really love João Pedro as a pick. But the double game week, it's big. I think Manchester United now having that red card, having that weaker defence, I expect Chelsea to score more goals across the entire double, which then makes João Pedro a quite attractive pick. Of course, it just maximises the amount of fixtures. Do I think Jarrod Bowen could outscore João Pedro? Yeah, he could, but across 2 fixtures, which would most likely be 180 minutes for João Pedro, I expect João Pedro to outscore him now. I think the weakness now in that Manchester United defence has maybe turned that switch to go for the João Pedro transfer. Now, the issue is, with 3 transfers remaining, I want to be saving some of them for later in the season. And I think what we'll do, we'll cover Erling Haaland and Calvert-Lewin, then I'll show you more in depth about the strategy and why I might want to save a transfer this week. Of course, Calvert-Lewin has some brilliant fixtures, and against Manchester United, genuinely so unlucky. I hate using the word unlucky in FPL sometimes, but it is, at the end of the day, quite luck-based. There's, of course, massive strategy behind the game, and if you get strategy right, you often win, but this was just unlucky for Dominic Calvert-Lewin owners. So many chances. I just felt one of them should have went in. Wolves at home, Bournemouth away. I'm excited about owning them. I have owned him for a lot of this season. He's been super good for me. I'm just hoping in this double he can come in clutch. Arsenal is the first fixture for Erling Haaland at home. Something tells me about this fixture, right? I don't know what it is, but I can genuinely see it playing exactly how it did in the Carabao Cup, but for one exception. I can't see that single pivot really from Arsenal being used to break through that Manchester City block. Of course, if you didn't watch the cup final, you wouldn't know that Manchester City didn't press really the Arsenal defence. They just kind of let them have the ball. They just sat in front of that midfield block. It was often a 4-player block, and just letting have that midfield massive amounts of space so they could try press through, and then when they did, snatch the ball, go up the other end and score. I see it being very similar. I just see Arsenal making a few tweaks here and there, maybe going a bit longer, maybe finding half spaces in off the wing from the wingers. I just see Pep Guardiola having the advantage tactically in this match. I see Manchester City winning. I actually see Erling Haaland having a pretty big responsibility on his back within this game. I see him doing quite well. And in that Burnley fixture, it's the same thought process, but I do expect minutes will be managed if they are ahead in that Burnley fixture. Omar Mamouche could definitely come on at half-time if they're already 2 or 3 up. No problem whatsoever. But I still think he's the clear captain this week. To take your mind away from that, though, and kind of showing you the likely transfer to be made this week, of course, I'm going to assume now, after seeing sort of a picture of O'Reilly stretching with the Man City squad, we're going to assume he's fit and ready to go. But you know, of course, O'Reilly to Guehi would be the most sensible transfer. Mitoma to Pascal Gross, Gomez or Hinchelwood is the easiest transfer. Right now, if I had to pick, if the deadline was in 2 minutes' time, Pascal Gross would come in. Also, Jarrod Bowen, as we discussed, would turn into a João Pedro. Now, that's 2 transfers used. I think that's my limit for the game week. I don't want to go any more than that, and I'll show you exactly why. Now, this week, of course, imagine I started with that team. Horrendous, just Bruno Fernandes. But it would be a free hit week for game week 34. Going into 35, very easy week in all honesty. I don't think our captain Cole Palmer, I think it would be Bruno Fernandes, even against Liverpool. Goodmanson may come in as well for O'Reilly if we sense that the injury is, worse than we expected. Just to save a transfer in all honesty. But when we get to 36, we would have again 3 free transfers. And that's super important to me in my strategy, purely because of the fact I'm aware that Crystal Palace and Manchester City should double in this game week. 2 fixtures are not always better than 1, but more than likely they are. I think the moves would be getting players like Lacroix, selling players like João Pedro. Spurs next week, though. Sunderland away, last game of the season. It's hard to sell. Really good fixtures for Calvert-Lewin. One of them would go, let's say it's João Pedro, into a Crystal Palace player. It isn't probably going to be Strand Larsen, I'll tell you that. It'll probably be Mateta. Then in the midfield, again, do we want to sell Palmer? No, it's probably Tavernier. It just depends about money. But let's say we sold Palmer just for the sake of the argument to show you that 3 transfers would be needed in this particular game week to really take full advantage of the double for City and Palace. That's why I don't want to make more than 3 transfers, or more than 2 transfers, in this current game week if we just go all the way back to game week 33 bench boost. I think that will be my final moves for the week. I'm overall pretty pleased with how the team looks with those transfers made. I think the future teams look really strong as well. It gives me the flexibility to maybe get Bukayo Saka in the end of the season, which I think is going to be an underrated play. But yeah, currently this is how we're set up with no transfers made. That O'Reilly news is going to be probably the biggest news I will be looking out for. But apart from that, this is how we're set up currently for FPL Gameweek 33, with transfers most likely for Jarrod Bowen out to João Pedro and Mitoma out to Pascal Gross. Although it is tempting to keep Mitoma for that Spurs fixture, because I do think he'll play. But let me know in the comments what you think of my sides. Are my transfers sensible or just nowhere near? Of course, comment your FPL questions as well. I reply to every single one. A quick reminder, the deadline is this Saturday at 11 AM, so you can expect my deadline stream on Saturday morning, 2 hours before the deadline hits, answering all of your FPL questions. Speaking about FPL questions though, if you have any at all, drop them in the comments of this video. I reply to absolutely every single one. Of course, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for future FPL content and FPL streams. But that's everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.